Lena stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror, fingertips pressing into the marble countertop as if she could steady herself through sheer force. The woman looking back at her was polished, flawless makeup, honey blonde hair smoothed into a sleek ponytail, a silk blouse tucked neatly into her slacks. The perfect wife. The perfect mother. The perfect lie. Downstairs, Daniel's voice carried up in muffled tones, another conference call bleeding into what was supposed to be their anniversary dinner. His briefcase sat by the door, unopened, just like every promise he'd made this year. Just one more quarter, Lena. Then things will calm down. She exhaled sharply, smudging a streak of lipstick with her thumb. Ethan's laughter floated from the kitchen, a bright counterpoint to the tension coiling in her chest. At 16, he was all sharp edges and guarded smiles, old enough to sense the fractures in his parents' marriage, but young enough to pretend they didn't exist. She'd caught him watching her sometimes, eyes narrowing when her phone buzzed with a notification she'd ignore too quickly. The doorbell rang. Lena smoothed her blouse and forced a smile as she descended the stairs. Through the frosted glass, a silhouette waited, broad-shouldered, familiar. Her pulse jumped. Mark. "Hey, stranger," he said when she opened the door, his grin lazy, effortless. The kind of smile Daniel hadn't given her in years. "Forgot this at the office." He held out a manila folder, their fingers brushing just long enough to send heat crawling up her wrist. "Thanks," she said, voice low. "You didn't have to, Mom." Ethan's voice cut through the moment. He stood in the hallway, a half-eaten apple in hand, gaze flickering between her and Mark. "Who's that?" Mark stepped back smoothly. "Just returning some paperwork. Your mom's saving my skin on the Johnson account." He winked, the lie seamless. Ethan didn't blink.
"Cool."
He took another bite of the apple, chewing slowly. "Dad's on a call. Again." The words landed like an accusation. Lena clenched the folder tighter. "I'll be right in, sweetheart." Ethan vanished, but the weight of his stare lingered. Mark waited until the footsteps faded. "You okay?"
"No."
The admission slipped out before she could stop it. This was a mistake. He leaned in, voice a murmur. "Then why do you keep saying yes?" The question hung between them, electric. She could still taste the wine from last week's business dinner, the way his hand had found her knee under the table, the way she hadn't moved it. Daniel's laugh boomed from the study, sudden and hollow. A performance for whoever was on the other end of the line. Mark traced the edge of the folder, deliberate. "Tomorrow. Coffee at Bennett's. No files, no excuses." She should say no. She should shut the door. 10 a.m., she whispered. His grin deepened. "See you then." As the door clicked shut, Lena pressed her forehead against the wood, guilt and hunger twisting in her gut. Behind her, Daniel's voice rose, sharp with a laugh that didn't reach his eyes. And somewhere in the house, Ethan's phone camera shutter clicked softly. The coffee shop's bell jingled as Lena stepped inside, the scent of roasted beans doing little to settle the acid churning in her stomach. She'd rehearsed her alibi 3 times in the car. Errands. Just running errands, but the lie tasted bitter even in her thoughts. Mark sat in the corner booth, sunlight catching the silver in his stubble. He stood when he saw her, that same effortless grin spreading across his face. "You came." "I shouldn't have." She slid into the seat across from him, fingers knotting around her purse strap. His knee brushed hers beneath the table. "But you did." A waiter appeared and Lena ordered tea. She wouldn't drink. Mark asked for black coffee, no sugar, just like Daniel used to take it. The realization twisted something inside her. "You're quiet," Mark murmured when the waiter left. Lena glanced at the window, half expecting to see Ethan's face pressed against the glass. "My son knows something." Mark stilled. "Did he say anything?"
"No."
"But he looks at me like..." She cut herself off, shaking her head. "It doesn't matter." "Of course it matters." He reached across the table, his thumb stroking the inside of her wrist. "You're not doing anything wrong, Lena." The words should have sounded hollow, but his touch burned through the guilt, leaving only a reckless hunger in its wake. She leaned in. "What are we doing?" His smile turned wolfish. Whatever you want. Ethan scrolled through his phone under the bleachers. The screen's glow harsh against the shadows. The photo of his mother and that man. Mark asterisk, she'd called him, blurred as his fingers tightened around the device. He'd spent all night staring at it, dissecting every detail. The way Mark's hand had lingered on her arm, the flush creeping up her neck. A text notification flashed. Dad, 12:47 p.m. Headed home early. Tell your mom, Ethan's throat closed. His father never left work before 7. He typed back, sure, then opened his camera roll. The photo stared back at him, a grenade waiting to detonate. Lena's phone buzzed as Mark paid the bill. Ethan, 1:03 p.m. Dad's coming home. Her stomach dropped. Daniel never came home early. Mark caught her expression. Problem. I have to go. She stood so fast her chair screeched. He followed her outside, catching her elbow as she fumbled for her keys. Lena. Not here. She wrenched free, scanning the parking lot like Daniel might materialize between the cars. Mark held up his hands. Okay, but this isn't over. It wasn't a question. Ethan was waiting on the porch when Lena pulled into the driveway. She forced a smile as she climbed the steps. Hey, sweetheart. You didn't have to wait outside. He didn't return the smile. Where were you? Just grabbing coffee. The lie slipped out automatically. Ethan's jaw tightened. He pulled his phone from his pocket, screen tilted toward her. With him, the photo glared up at her. Mark's hand on her arm, her body angled toward him like a flower to the sun. The world tilted. Ethan. The front door swung open. Daniel stood in the doorway, tie loosened, exhaustion lining his face. What's going on? Silence. Ethan's grip on the phone whitened. Lena could see the war in his eyes, loyalty to his father, fury at her, the terrible weight of being the one to break everything. Then slowly he lowered the phone. Nothing, he muttered, shouldering past Daniel into the house. Just talking. Daniel frowned after him, then turned to Lena. You okay? You look pale. She swallowed the scream, clawing up her throat.
Fine.
Just tired. Daniel nodded absently, already pulling out his own phone. Don't forget, the Thompsons are coming over tonight. As he walked away, Lena stared at Ethan's retreating back, her son's unspoken threat hanging between them like a blade. He knew, and he was giving her one last chance to fix it. Lena adjusted the strap of her black dress, her fingers trembling against the silk. The Thompsons would arrive any minute, and the weight of Ethan's silence pressed against her ribs like a stone. He hadn't spoken to her since the coffee shop, just icy glares and monosyllabic answers. Daniel clinked ice into a whiskey glass, oblivious. Did you order the caterers for the Henderson merger party next week? Yes, Lena lied. She hadn't done it. Hadn't done anything but replay that photo in her mind. Ethan knew, and jump every time her phone buzzed. Mark had texted 3 times. She hadn't replied. The doorbell rang. Ethan slouched against the stair railing, arms crossed. You gonna get that, Mom? The word dripped venom. Daniel frowned. What's with you tonight? Nothing. Ethan's eyes locked onto Lena's. Just curious how this'll go. Her breath hitched. Dinner was a minefield. Lena laughed too loudly at Mr. Thompson's jokes, her wineglass emptying faster than the others. Across the table, Ethan stabbed at his salmon, his phone face up beside his plate. A silent threat. And then the client had the audacity to say, Lena, you listening? Daniel's voice snapped her back. Of course, she said automatically. Mrs. Thompson tilted her head. You seem distracted. Ethan smirked. Lena's phone buzzed in her pocket. Mark, again. Daniel's eyes flicked to her lap. Who's texting you this late? The room went still. Ethan set down his fork with deliberate calm.
Yeah, Mom.
Who is it? Her pulse roared in her ears. She could lie, just work, just Sarah from the office, but Ethan's stare dared her to try it. The doorbell rang again. Daniel pushed back his chair. Who the hell? Lena knew. Even before Daniel swung the door open to reveal Mark standing there, Ty slightly askew, holding a bottle of wine like some grotesque parody of a guest, she knew. "Sorry I'm late," Mark said smoothly, his gaze sliding past Daniel to Lena. Traffic was hell. Ethan's chair screeched as he stood. Daniel looked between them, confusion hardening into suspicion. "Lena? You invited him." Mark stepped inside without waiting, brushing past Daniel. "She didn't tell you? We've been working closely lately." Lena's mouth went dry. This wasn't part of their script. Mark wasn't supposed to be here. Ethan's phone hit the table with a thud, the photo glaring up at them all, Lena and Mark, his hand on her waist, her head tilted toward him like a secret. Mrs. Thompson gasped. Daniel's face drained of color. What the fuck is this? Mark took a sip of his wine, watching Lena over the rim of his glass. Waiting. Ethan's voice was quiet, triumphant. Ask her. Lena opened her mouth, to deny, to beg, to something, but the words crumbled to ash on her tongue. Daniel snatched the phone, his hands shaking. "Is this why you've been working late?" "Why, Ethan's been," he choked off, realization dawning. You knew? This last part was aimed at Ethan, raw with betrayal. Ethan didn't flinch. Someone had to. Mark set down his glass. "Look, Daniel." Daniel's fist connected with Mark's jaw before he could finish. Glass shattered. Mrs. Thompson screamed. And Lena? Lena finally told the truth. "It's over," she whispered. But as Daniel stormed out, as the Thompsons hurried after him with awkward apologies, as Ethan stood frozen in the wreckage of the life she'd blown apart, Lena knew one thing with absolute clarity. It was only beginning.